and those interested in the matters that's going on in Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago. I am Dr. Sean Ned. I am the chairman of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, and I am here in the PDP headquarters with our political leader, Mr. Watson Solomon Duke. And as per usual on these Wednesdays, we haven't had in a while, we are continuing our discussion with the people of Tobago and as part of that, Trinidad and Tobago. And we have several key items to go over this morning. We have four main items, one of which is the constitutional reform, the Tobago self-determination, national security issues, as well as the THA elections. Now, on the first matter, which is the constitutional reform, this has been placed in the public by the central government, and we have to remember the value of this good direction, and the value is to, of course, make our society, the laws, the economy more robust. That's what we want out of this, right? The problems that we are having now, we would like to fix these problems. We also would like to hold in check issues such as crime and corruption. So at the end of this constitutional reform process, we expect to see these sorts of outcomes. And it's important to speak about outcomes because it allows us to understand whether or not something has been successful. So in the current stage of the constitutional reform, we have to engage the public. It's very important. We've had links go out, surveys go out, that's been passing along on WhatsApp and on various locations, asking the public for answers to questions regarding the constitutional reform. I think we need to see more of that involved across all of the country. We don't see that so much in Tobago, and we don't see that so much in Trinidad. So we'd like to see that improve upon. But more so, we want to understand how this constitutional reform will actually help Tobago. We push for the issues of Tobago, and we want to know how will Tobago be accommodated when, and we have to say it, whenever we talk about anything with laws and the Constitution, it is clearly biased to Trinidad. Trinidad has the majority population in what we call Tobago and Trinidad, Trinidad and Tobago. All right? So with that comes the next heading of the Tobago self-determination. So there's a statement, he who feels it knows it. All right? Now you live in Tobago, and all of us who live here understand the ills and problems here. So when we speak to our Trinidadian cousins and family, they may not understand what we have concerns on. Right? You often have the pushback, you'll just take your budget money and be quiet. Right? But for Trinidadians who come and live here, their tone changes. So we have that going on. And then we have to understand when we say Trinidadian, we're really talking about the PNM government. The PNM government in power currently. And they are the ones who will sit in the committees, joint select committees, the various boards and entities responsible for finalizing this constitutional reform. All right? So, and then, of course, the Tobago self-determination. What we would like to ask is that there is a deferment to the Tobagonian guiders, the people who guide in the matters regarding Tobago and what Tobago wants. Of course, the PDP stands at the head of that, and we have given enough guidance and information. We want to continue that process. Remember, we want to see more engagement with the population and more engagement with those who know what's going on in Tobago and see that reflected in constitutional reform as well as in Tobago self-determination. So moving on the issue of national security. This is a large issue. And we're going towards something that's controlled by the central government again. I remind everyone about the oil spill that occurred. This issue has become very, very quiet, and that is very concerning, right? We live in Tobago. You can visually see not much of the oil issues going on, but you need to update us on the status of these issues. We still have questions. When this matter was going on from the beginning, where was the Coast Guard and where were the particular central government service providers on that issue? And of course, if the Coast Guard has a problem seeing a oil barge drifting into a reef very, very slowly, we query if the Coast Guard is doing its job in other matters. Right? These are part of national security issues. So this is the monitoring of our borders. And then we have another issue that is particularly affecting our business community and of course our own industries such as tourism. And that would be the access to foreign capital. Right? One of the reasons why we have issues on that is because of our status as a relatively corrupt nation. That is a national security issue. This has been ongoing for years now. It is highly damaging to your economy when you have only $300 to collect. I don't know, it's per day or per week. So I think it's per week. That's what's going on. That is not feasible if you are very serious about increasing your economy. And again, we tack back to the constitutional reform right here. You want to make sure that there is enough capital for your citizens as well as anyone coming onto our shores, so we can actually do business, which then grows our economy. That's what we want. So these are issues within national security, and there's more which the political leader will develop on. I will move on to the THA elections. This THA elections will be a referendum on the current administration. What we have is a situation where the persons who came in on the PDP have decided to sidestep the normal process of things. And the normal process of things is done for a valuable reason. The reason why people vote for those in power is because there was an agreement, a social contract, if you may, where we're saying X, Y, and Z in our mandate, and we tell the population, if you vote for us, we will do these things. And then you get in power and you push aside the party that has the control on those things. In other words, there's no one to keep them in check on whether or not they actually do any aspect of our mandate or any aspect of what they promised you under the banner of the PDP, even though one has the right to decide to go under a new banner and form a new party. You still are liable for what you told the people during elections. And if you're not going to do that, then whose fault is that? Is that the fault of the party under which you won, or is it now you are taking on that as your own problem? And this is the confusion that has occurred since this so-called split occurred. So we have to remind people about the value of parties. Yes, parties are seen in a very negative way within our culture and many cultures, but there is still a value of parties. The value is to organize views and organize the people under a common banner. If we all agree that we want to see social reform, if we all agree in democracy, if we all agree on some very key tenets, we have joined under one banner called the PDP, and we're all going to move forward in the same direction. It means then that we all must stay together. This is why, again, remember the history of Tobago of forming and killing parties. That doesn't go very well. And this is why this party is staying and this party is not going anywhere. So we come to the point of asking, what do we do about this? And the natural course of action, especially when and I don't know if any of the media checked on this, but the party actually got registered. The TPP is registered as of, at least the update would have been February. So if you check your EBC site, you will see that it's registered, and it's registered in Canby. That's the location. And we have questions. There are questions that should be asked of central government now when you have a new party registered under a situation where they exited the party under which they won. These are questions that must be asked. But what are we going to do about it? Is it now that that triggers a new election? Is that what we should do? In fact, that's probably the best thing, because you are now operating under a situation where what you're doing has not been sanctioned by the people. They did not vote for that. They voted for a political leader. That was Watson Solomon Duke. He is still here. The party hasn't gone anywhere. The mandate of the party has not changed. The constitution of the party has not changed. The direction and the directives of the party have not changed. And so these are the issues that we want to deal with today, and they're very important. So I remind you, constitutional reform, the Tobago self-determination, national security issues, and the THA elections. And we bring that to you, the people. And with that, I'd like to move over to the political leader to give some words, and I thank you all.
Thank you to our chairman, Dr. Sean. It's very good being here today with my colleagues and my media associates, so to speak. It has been said that the government is now engaged in a constitutional reform bill, and they're going around the society of Trinidad and Tobago to engage people to hear their views. Allow me to say that the constitutional / amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill 2021 is a sham exercise. Again, I repeat, the constitutional reform amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill is a sham. It is a hoax. It is a setup. And I'm wondering, where are our scholars, those who love to talk? I'm wondering, where is the academic prowess of Tobagonians, those that love to have their names written on documents? Can they see that this constitutional amendment, Tobago Self-Government Bill, does not give Tobago self-government? The only route whereby Tobago can gain self-government, it is through self-determination. Self-determination equals self-government. Some of the failures of the bill comes about with the bill stating in the preamble that it is to confer self-government upon the people of Tobago. And Tobago will be known as an island government, and the island government consists of a legislative body known as the House of Assembly and an executive body known as Tobago Executive Council. However, while Tobagonians can make laws in the legislative body or the House of Assembly, they are restricted. That is not self-government. That is not self-government. That is giving us some of our rights. As it stands right now, within the Tobago House of Assembly Act, there is something called assembly laws, which can be made even now. None has been made, But there is something called assembly laws within the Tobago House of Assembly Act that allows the Tobago House of Assembly to make its own laws. And there are 33 areas on which Tobago House of Assembly can make its own laws even now. Though the process is rigorous, boring, and somewhat impossible, it is there. So saying to Tobagonians that you'll have this legislative body and you would be able to make laws, but you will be restricted from making laws on these, it is not good enough. And Tobago does not want that level of lawmaking ability. When we talk about making laws, Tobago must make laws on every single thing for Tobago. And we in Tobago must determine what those things are. I'm saying again, when coming to our lawmaking ability, Tobago must determine among itself what our lawmaking powers are. It should not be a parliament in Trinidad that is heavily skewed towards the political directorates there. We have 39 seats in Trinidad and only 2 seats in Tobago. So it means we will always be outvoted. There is no self-government. When you have a parliament being governed by 39 seats in Trinidad and only 2 in Tobago, there can be no self-determination. Well, self-government. And so what the PDP is proposing and what we are saying now, and we want it to be heard and carried through the ends of Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean and the world, is that we propose full self-determination for the people of Tobago, which is Tobagonians must among themselves be able to determine their own political status and to pursue and develop their economy, their social and cultural systems and policies, etc. As it stands right now, the Constitutional Amendment Bill speaks of our, in fact, it recognizes, I want to make that point, the Tobago Self-Government Bill speaks of the recognition, Trinidad recognizing our right to self-determination. So what I'm asking for is nothing new. What I'm asking for is not difficult. Trinidad, in its preamble, recognizes Tobago's right. That is clause 4. Recognizes Tobago's right to self-determination. And Tobago must, among its own people, determine its own political status and to pursue its own economic, social, and cultural development. That is within the preamble of the Constitutional Amendment Bill. However, to recognize one's right is not the same as to bestow upon Tobago those rights. What Trinidad does is to recognize the rights of Tobagonians. We don't want that type of stuff here in Tobago. We want our rights to be bestowed upon us. Give us our rights. And that is where the Constitutional Amendment Bill becomes a sham. Because there you are recognizing the rights of Tobagonians, saying they have a right to self-determination, because only self-determination can lead to self-government. They are saying to us, we only recognize it. We are not bestowing upon you those rights. It is the same thing with Tobago Executive Council. Tobago Executive Council has executive authority over Tobago, but it is restricted in certain areas again. That is something for Tobago to decide. That is not something for a parliament in Trinidad to decide. And so what should have happened is that Tobago should have decided its own political status. Tobago should have decided its own cultural, social, and economic development, and then send those things to Trinidad. Look, this is what we want to do. This is the ambit of our desire. This is where we want to go. Without having that from Tobago, Trinidad is now conferring upon us the powers that they want us to have, and I say no to that form of constitutional reform. Allow me to run fast with this and say another thing about the constitutional reform. It refuses to recognize that the Senate people are not elected but appointed. And so therefore it does not place it upon the president, which is the person with the right to select independent senators, to elect out of her number specific persons from Tobago. That doesn't happen. And so if the two governments or the two parties in Trinidad would have won the election, they could decide not to take anybody from Tobago at all to serve as a senator. Which means within the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, we would be deficient insofar as senatorial positions are concerned. Yeah? And that is a fault. I'm not sure how come all the intellectuals would have came up with a bill saying Tobago's self-determination. How they could have left that out. And again, I ask the question, where are the scholars who love to talk in Tobago? Where are the people from the School of Academia who say they're bright? Where are they? How are they speaking on this issue? We do not want more miles in the sea, you know. We don't want that. We do not want more this and more of that. What we want is all our rights, not more, all our rights. And we do not want Trinidad to simply recognize our right to self-determination. We want Trinidad to bestow upon Tobagonians our right to self-determination. I repeat again, we do not want the recognition of our rights. We know our rights. What we want is the bestowing of our rights, all our rights to self-determination. We are not accepting anything less than that. And I don't care which political party or who scholar, who person come from School of Academia say they're bright. This is what Tobago wants. Trinidad has done much by saying we recognize your right. Now it is the right of Tobagonians to say don't recognize it, but give it, bestow it. And so as you read through the constitutional reform documents, every single thing within this is geared towards enslaving Tobago and putting Tobago in a constitution that fixes its position for the next 100 or 200 years. What do I mean by that? It means that the laws that Tobago will make will always be subservient, will always have to bow to the laws of a parliament that is heavily conspired, heavily skewed away from Tobago towards Trinidad. It means that you will continue to be the servants of a Trinidad parliament and not the people of Tobago. That cannot be. Where are the scholars? Why haven't they come up with this? Also, Trinidad recognizes, and I want to read it for you, in the preamble again, the right of Tobago to make use of all its, to have a fair share of the resources and the opportunities for the people of Tobago. That is in the preamble. We recognize that. We don't want Trinidad to recognize that. We want Trinidad to bestow upon us our rights. That's what we're saying. And so with all this old talk about having meeting here and there and writing down 6 points and all kind of nonsense, we are not interested in that. We do not want Trinidad to recognize our right to self-determination, but they must give it. We do not want Trinidad to recognize also and to recognize the need to enable us to have access to a fair share of resources and opportunities within the nation. We don't want that recognition. They must bestow it. All the time for talk is over. It's time for action. And this is why this election is important. This election is important. These 2 seats that Tobago has is extremely important. You can't give those 2 seats to any and everybody. These are decision-making powers. When the election ballots would have been counted and the seats would have been stacked against each other, it is my view that Tobago will have the balance of power. And those 2 seats in Tobago will become the kingmakers. That will become the fulcrum of political power within our parliamentary system. And so we have to be careful how we vote in this upcoming election. You have to vote for leaders with a clear mindset, a clear agenda, a clear plan. Now that we have the heavy roller, is no more. And he didn't understand either. He didn't understand either what we need here. All of them were talking autonomy. Now that the late great A.N. Robinson is dead, and he didn't understand what we need either. They were talking autonomy. I am talking self-determination. And Trinidad is correct. Trinidad is saying we recognize the right of Tobagonians to self-determine. But how many of us understand what it means to self-determine? How many of us understand what it means? These elections is not to put all of these pretty colors they have outside there into power. It is to put someone who can hold the views of Tobagonians and represent them to the highest part of this parliamentary system without fear or favor, affection or ill will, without flinching or fickling. Let me go a little further to say this. Tobago is in a problem when national security is concerned. Our national security problem is partly due to those who are managing Tobago, yes. But more than that, our national security problem has been created by a constitution that does not allow Tobago to have its own national security apparatus, or its own security, I would say, its own island security apparatus. This is the problem we're having. We have a constitution that does not allow for Tobago to have its own police service, and I'm demanding that. I am demanding that Tobago should have its own police service. That should be in the constitution. They're talking a set of nonsense in the constitutional reform that we should have a service commission. To do what? Hire civil servants alone? We must have a full service commission in Tobago that deals with hiring persons for Tobago, but not just civil servants. They must hire teachers. Yes, they must also hire prison officers. They must hire for Tobago, within Tobago. They must hire police officers. Yes, they must hire coast guards. Yes, Tobago needs its own coast guard in Tobago. We are demanding that. We also need our own army in Tobago. Yes, we are demanding that. And let me just pause to clarify the issue, because these are not the things that the scholars will tell you. They'll tell you all kind of hogwash, but they will not tell you the things that we need to know. In the Philippines, which consists of over 7,000 islands, an archipelagic island like Trinidad and Tobago, right? Over 7,000 islands. Many of the islands would have its own local police, its own local army, and its own local coast guard. Many of the islands in the Philippines. Check it out. While it's a national system, there's also a local system. And we in Tobago, we are saying the self-government bill, the constitutional bill must speak to those things. It must say exactly that Tobago could have its own army, local army, its own coast guard, its own police service, prison service, fire service. And with that, they must have their own commander-in-chief across here. Whether it be commissioner of police or commissioner of prison, whatever the case may be. They must have those things across here. This is local to Tobago. This is what we are talking about when we say Tobago must make bills, right? When we say Tobago must make bills for peace, order, and good government, then it means those things. Whatever speaks to good government, whatever speaks to order, whatever speaks to peace, we must be able to make laws for those things. Another thing I want to speak about is the need for fresh elections in Tobago. The Constitution does not speak to the anomaly that arose in Tobago in 2021. Two anomalies arose. One, 6-6. The Constitution does not speak to that. Remember, the Constitution seeks to now replace the Tobago Self-Assembly Act, yeah? It replaces that, yeah? Because it speaks outside of that, yeah? And there must be a whole new Tobago Island government bill or something like that if you want to break it down to size. But the Constitution must speak what happens in the event where there is a split down the middle, 6-6. It wouldn't happen again, of course, because now 15 seats. But the Constitution also does not speak about if a group of wildly excited assemblymen want to leave and form a party. what happens to the will of the people? What happens to the political will of Tobagonians? This is a subversion of justice. And I'm wondering, where is the head of our Prime Minister as he contemplates upon Tobago being run in a self-governing manner? I wonder where the scholars. People talking about miles, resources, and more money. But I am concerned about all our rights. Tobago has no right to be in the position it is in right now. As a matter of fact, those who continue to occupy the position of the THA, they are there illegally. And they are hiding behind the law because the law is not accurate. But here we have a Prime Minister. Big Prime Minister. Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, who is not worth a point of whatever. Because last year in April, when my colleague was forming his own political organization, right? He jumped to the media and he said, I want to read it. This is what he said. He said the chief secretary, this is what the Prime Minister said in April last year, 1 year now, 1 year this month. He said the chief secretary would do well to make arrangements for early election within the same time frame he is making to register a new political party with the EBC. Well, it is registered. It is registered. It has taken a year, but it is registered. What is the Prime Minister saying now? What is he saying now? Is he still calling upon the Chief Secretary to prepare for elections? What role does the Prime Minister have in determining whether there should be elections or not? He went on further to say this. He spoke again. He said, should this occur without an election, which means should these persons change their political party name, from PDP to what they want to call it now, and they continue to govern Tobago without the express political will of the people for that party to govern Tobago, he's saying this: should this occur without an election, the resultant executive authority, without reference to Tobago electorate, would run counter to the espoused lofty principles being espoused of nurturing democracy from the ground up when it is time to form a party, but to dispense with the tenets for the people, by the people democracy when it is time to hold office to the exclusion of the electorate. What he's saying, you can't hold office to the exclusion of the electorate. They didn't vote for that. This is the will of the people. Nowhere did they put out a mandate. No way did they run on an engagement with the public. They have never engaged the public. When they engaged the public, it was under the PDP. When they engaged the public, it was with a PDP mandate. Imagine this. Imagine they would have gone out with their name, whatever it is, and no mandate as the PDP mandate. Yeah? And I am not associated with them. Could you think they would have been placed into power? Tobago would not have done that. Tobago would not have done that. Tobago voted for them based on what they would have said at the polls. Based on all this simidimi of calling people before and taking oath of office with commission of affidavit, and they're going to register thing with the whatever, and they're going to give people it in their hand, and they're going to ask the people to hold it to account to this mandate. That is the length they went to. But no sooner than they got in, within the space, within less than 12 months, they removed themselves from the mandate, referred to themselves as independent people, and then the Prime Minister threatened them. Last year, April, when he said, hey, while you're registering a party, prepare for elections, because you all have no mandate for this party to govern the people. Nowhere in the world could you hear, and I'm talking to the Prime Minister now, nowhere in the world could you hear a party without contesting an election is leading an executive in a democratic country. And that is happening under his nose. Under his African nose, it is happening. How could it possibly happen? When Africa is being laughed upon and being frowned upon in the world, we have now a group of Africans being quite militant, trying to redefine Africa as upward and forward thinking people. We have an African general down here. African general down here in the form of our Prime Minister. He's sitting down and he's watching a coup takes place under his nose when he is Prime Minister. Where are the quick and successive amendments to put down this reign of terror upon the people of Tobago? Or is he going to wait until election time come around and then ask Tobago to vote for his party, which is the party whatever color they wear? I'm saying to you now, this is a serious issue. And Tobago is no joke. And I understand why, you know. I understand why the African group that recognizes great Africans, right, throughout the Caribbean and that kind of stuff, would have not given him the award. You know who they gave the award? Huh? Our neighbor. They gave our neighbor the award. The president of Guyana got the award recently. Right? From an African, imagine that. An African country has bestowed an award upon our neighbor in Guyana. And I'm seeing in the photo our Prime Minister with his African self, who was crowned as some king or something so recently in Africa, sitting there, not even being recognized among the African people for greatness. What are we doing? If you can't settle this in your own hometown, Tobago, Mr. Prime Minister, you're wasting time. You should, as Farley say, call election now. And Farley has a right to do that. Farley has a right to them to call election now. Because under your nose, the people of Tobago have expressed their political will for a specific mandate, a specific political party. And you have turned your face from that and threatened Farley, saying, if when you're doing that, call election. When he do it, As we say in Tobago, he do 'em. In your face, he do 'em. He register a party. What you going to do now? Tobagoans are waiting on you, Mr. Prime Minister. Don't be an abject failure, as you have been on crime and so many other issues. Don't be a failure to Tobagonians. Because I'm saying now to Tobagonians, watch and see what our Prime Minister will do. See how he will treat with this. Because he's talked down to Farley. When you see you register in a party, you better make way for elections one time. Because this can't work. All kind of fancy talk. But Farley do him. He do it. Let me see your move now. It's a game of chess. You are Prime Minister. You have executive authority over everybody in this country. Over Tobago House of Assembly too. Let me see what you do. I want to end my press conference and take some questions. Drop it like it's hot.
How do you see the constitutional reform taking place currently in the context of the autonomy bills?
It's a waste of time. It's a talk shop. It's a political weapon being used by the PNM to say the UNC doesn't want anything good for Tobago and get back in power. On one hand, it's another political game that are being used, that if the UNC agree to that, it's enslaved Tobago for the next 200 years, and we can't get out of that. What goes into the Constitution requires 3/4 majority at the representative level, lower house, and 2/3 majority at the upper house, which means you will need 21 votes in the upper house to pass it, and you will need about 31 votes in the lower house to pass it. That's not going to happen easy with any government. Hardly any government in today's society would have that. Throughout the world right now, we have coalition government happening throughout the entire world, almost all over the world, right? Especially in Europe and these places. So to any one person to have 31 seats again, it's going to be crazy, totally impossible. So you're going to always require the opposition support. But when the opposition support, if they support this, we're in slavery for the next 200 years. And I don't know how we can get out of that. We will have some masters across here and masters in Trinidad, but we have no recourse for natural justice and to exercise our own opinion. This constitution ought to say exactly how we should go about, right, taking charge of Tobago using our right to self-determination. It should say something like, within 1 month, 1 year, the passage of this bill, Tobagoans will have the right among themselves to determine their own political status, which is if we want to remain with Trinidad as Trinidad and Tobago, or whether Tobago want to raise its own flag with its own national anthem, and that is what self-determination means. Or if we want to go and join with Grenada, St. Vincent and Barbados and form something with them. We must determine that. That is something that must take place here on Tobago. The Constitution does not speak to that. It only recognizes, all I have a right in, I recognize that. Which is a good place to start, but it can't end there. We need to have more within the bill to say how do we go about seizing and making use of that right to self-determination. The bill is devoid of that. Only slavery is in the bill. Only slavery, only slavery. You could do this, but you can't. You could do this, but you can't. Nonsense. We don't want that. And we have all our scholars and them. Hush, hush on this. Where they are? What they went to school for? To stay quiet? Education make a man noisy, you know. You want to talk. That's what I'm saying to you. Tobago depending on them. How come they're not talking self-determination? They're talking autonomy. More rights. We don't want more rights. We want all our rights. And we want the bill to say how can we access all of those rights very clearly. Yeah?
You will be contesting the Tobago East and West seats, of course.
We have many tricks in our bags. Let's keep that so. Many tricks is in our bags. Let's see what's going to happen at that time. Many tricks.
Just one question coming off of this. What is your view on so many big died and immediate units in Port of Spain? What's your view on it? Are you calling for the health minister to resign?
I'm concerned about some Tobago babies dying young. I'm concerned about that. And I'm saying that ought not to happen. Or what happened to our hospital up there? Why weren't they up there at that point in time? That's a question for me. Right? Is our hospital properly equipped so as to prevent something as this in Tobago? They say when a neighbor house on fire, you wet yours. Alright? And I'm not going to try to get involved in what happened in Trinidad. That has already been investigated. And I pray to do that with decency and integrity. However, I'm watching out for Tobago. Are we preparing ourselves to avoid anything like this? Because this bug, where it came from? How does it exist? How does it thrive? How does it multiply? How could we ensure Tobago doesn't suffer from that? That's my concern. And I've not heard the Secretary of Health say anything again because they don't understand the power and responsibility we have towards Tobagonians. Thank you all very much. It has been a great press conference. And I want to tell those on the Facebook Live, keep viewing for more as we march towards 2025 elections. Thank you.